Thank you. So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for participating in the conference this afternoon and being part of the movement to increase student interest in family medicine. I'm the head of the Department of Family and Community Medicine at Northeast Ohio Medical University, where I've been serving since 2014. And one of the major goals of our department has been to increase student interest in family medicine. There are both external and internal factors at play that impact students' choice of the specialty they're going to spend their career practicing. External factors might include things such as salary amongst various specialties, national recognition of the importance of primary care or specialty care, health organization strategies for improving the number of students choosing primary care, and many other factors. So we all know that the number of students choosing primary care as their specialty career in the United States has been decreasing during the last few decades. What I'm going to focus on today, however, is those internal factors at play within a medical school community and how a Department of Family Medicine can impact those factors. NEOMED was founded in 1973 as a 6-year BSMD program with 3 partner universities, the University of Akron, Kent State University, and Youngstown State University. We graduated our first class in 1981, so we'll be graduating our 40th class next year. Now, Dr. Jeff Sussman, an academic family physician that I know many of you know, joined NEOMED as dean approximately 10 years ago, where he served for about 6 years. And Dr. Sussman recruited a team to address NEOMED's commitment to primary care and determine how we could move further in that direction. One of the outcomes of that work that Dr. Porfelli and his team concluded was that the BSMD program was producing primary care physicians at a rate equal to or lower than the national average. So the number of students from NEOMED going into family medicine was at or below the national average. And Dr. Sussman recruited me to join the team in 2014, and our department immediately began looking at the challenge of increasing primary care output at NEOMED. Now, you might think the rest of the story is easy at that point, but unfortunately, Dr. Sussman was only there for a couple of years after I started, and we had a new dean to deal with. And we're going to talk about that a little bit and how we were able to continue our work in spite of some changes in things like the mission statement and other important aspects of our support. So in order to make significant change at an institution that has been doing something a particular way for more than 30 years, a few things have to be in place. You need to understand the culture in order to be able to change it. And I know you've all heard the saying that culture eats strategy for lunch. You need to understand the causes of low primary care output at your institution and be committed to doing the things you need to do to positively move the needle. One of my favorite quotes is from Edward Everett Hale, who said, "I am only one, but I am still one. I cannot do everything, but still I can do something. And because I cannot do everything, I will not refuse to do the something that I can do." And that's one of the quotes that I use to challenge my faculty every day and every year. We found out, that was borne out in Dr. Porfelli's presentation today, is that there were a couple of major factors at play that had to be changed for us to significantly move the needle. We chose to look at 3 separate areas: pipeline, admissions, and the medical student experience. So you're going to see some recurring themes today. It became obvious to us rather quickly after Dr. Porfelli's analysis that he did at NEOMED that our pipeline was not resulting in us recruiting students that had those characteristics that were typical of students that choose family medicine. Regarding admissions, it was determined that the only statistically significant factor that had any bearing on who was being admitted to NEOMED was the MCAT scores and the student grades. In fact, Dr. Porfelli's analysis showed that the admissions interview had no statistical significance when it came to who we were accepting to NEOMED. And when it came to the medical student experience, the family medicine clerkship had been rated as the top clerkship experience for the last 5 years running. One might conclude from this analysis that the major work that needed to be done at NEOMED had to do with pipeline and admissions. However, further analysis into the available national data clearly indicated that there were some possibilities regarding the medical student experience where we could greatly impact the number of students going into family medicine. And that is to implement pathways for students such as a rural pathway. I'm going to talk about how pathways can help you actually look at all three pillars at the same time. So we adopted the three-pillar approach to increasing students choosing family medicine. What this framework says in a nutshell is that we need a pipeline of students to apply to medical school who have the characteristics that we are looking for. And once they've applied to medical school, we have to admit them to medical school. And then once they're in medical school, we have to support the ideals and characteristics that are innate to family medicine through their medical school education. So we've focused on the three pillars: pipeline, admissions, and medical student experience. Some people would add a fourth pillar, which is increasing the number of family medicine residency spots. And that's something that I'm not going to cover today. So this framework is borrowed from a presentation that Ryan Palmer gave at an STFM meeting about 5 years ago. As students are pondering their career choice, they go through a sort of stages of change. Different students are at different stages in their decision-making at different points in their career. Some students know early on that they want to be a primary care physician, while others don't make that decision until they are in their third or even fourth year of medical school. And the vast majority of students make their decision in the third year of medical school. In the pre-medical and pipeline stage, some students might not even know they want to be a physician and are still deciding on a career. Most students in the pipeline phase are open to considering lots of different paths in medicine. During the M1 and M2 experience, many students are contemplating and exploring the specialty that they will wind up in, and they're trying to figure out the best match or the specialty that they think they will be most happy in. Traditionally, the third year of medical school is the first full year of clinical experience for most medical students. For some, the choice of specialty happens early in the third year, while for others, it occurs late in the year. Typically, as most of you know, students who choose family medicine say things like, "I liked all of my rotations," or "When I did my family medicine rotation, I really felt like I was at home." It turns out that the data shows that more students change from wanting to do family medicine at the beginning of the third year away from family medicine than the number of students who change from not wanting to do family medicine to family medicine by the end of the third year. During the first 15 years of my academic career, I thought that we needed to focus on the third year student experience in order to steer more students to choose family medicine. What I failed to understand was that there are a limited number of ways that we can impact student decision-making in the third year. We only see them for our clerkship time, which, at NEOMED is 6 weeks. So then they've got the other 42 weeks or so with the other specialties. So what do we need to do in each of the three pillars? Well, in the pre-medical pipeline pillar, we need to increase the number of qualified applicants that have the characteristics of people who choose family medicine. And in the admissions pillar, we need to reform the admissions process to admit more students that have those characteristics that we're looking for. And then in the medical school experience, we have to figure out how to nurture those students that are likely to choose family medicine from the beginning of medical school through their decision-making and right down to match day. So what I want to talk about next is how we've approached the three-pillar challenge at NEOMED. So I'm going to give you a little story here about our department, where we were, and Erica was part of the department before I showed up, and by the time I showed up in 2014, Eric Porfelli had moved into the dean's office. So when I had joined the Department of Family and Community Medicine at NEOMED in 2014, they had recently undergone a transformation where 3 departments were combined into one. These 3 departments were behavioral science, community medicine, and family medicine. These departments, now combined into one, were still functioning as siloed combinations of faculty. They were not focused on a unified mission or vision or goals. At that time, the Department of Family and Community Medicine had 15 full-time faculty members, of which only 2, if you include myself, were family physicians. Think about that. We only had two full-time family physicians in our department. The rest of our faculty that were family physicians were volunteer faculty located at one of 8 different residency programs. There was one other physician in our department who was a non-practicing preventative care physician, serving as the director of the Masters in Public Health program at NEOMED. The rest of the faculty were all PhDs or master level and had little involvement in recruiting to family medicine. At the time, their understanding of the specialty of family medicine was little more than what you would expect of any basic science faculty member at a medical school. So I spent the first few months getting to know the department, the College of Medicine, and the university, understanding the culture, our strengths and weaknesses, and our challenges and opportunities. At this point at NEOMED, the number of students entering family medicine was hovering around 8% for the last couple of years, plus or minus 1 or 2%. Additionally, during the year before my arrival, 7 department faculty members had left the department, with 2 retiring, 3 being recruited to the dean's office, and 2 social scientists moving to another department. And that was when we embarked on a strategic planning process which engaged all of the members of the department. So what we did was we created a strategic planning framework, which we will review in a moment. We conducted a SWOT analysis by tapping into thought leaders in the department and engaging a wide range of stakeholders, both internal and external to the department. And we also engaged stakeholders external to NEOMED. We then had a department retreat where we collaboratively created buy-in and enthusiasm around a set of goals that were collaboratively arrived at. Our first and primary goal that we agreed on was also our first BHAG, which was to increase the number of students going into primary care to greater than 30%. And notice we used the word primary care there. Following the retreat, we used the World Cafe method to come up with a list of activities that we could employ within each of the 3 pillars. We then used the nominal group process followed by a modified Delphi method to narrow down our activities that we would engage in over the next 2 to 5 years. Once this was completed, we asked individual faculty and groups of faculty members to each take on a goal or goals toward increasing recruitment into family medicine. Then we took on an ongoing process of revisiting our big goals every 2 years in a mini retreat. So this is our strategic planning framework articulated as 2 phases. First is the development phase, and the second is the implementation phase. What we found as we worked through this was that implementation started for some of our goals before the strategic planning was completed. The second key point here is that strategic planning is an ongoing process that requires you to visit strategic planning frequently as factors both internal and external change. In the planning stage, we defined our mission and vision. We collaboratively worked within our department and with input from key stakeholders, and we arrived at a set of shared values. When we conducted a SWOT analysis, we made sure we included key stakeholders in our planning and development process, including the dean and university president and external stakeholders. We created measurable outcomes and we revisited these outcomes on a regular basis. Once our plan was finalized, we moved toward implementing the plan and monitoring our progress. Some of our goals had to be adjusted as resources changed and leadership at the university level changed. It's imperative to revisit your strategic plan on a regular basis to develop new strategies to achieve your vision as internal and external forces and resources change. And I'm going to give some specific examples about that today. As you can see from this slide, the Department of Family and Community Medicine at NEOMED has within its core 8 areas for which we are responsible. This includes the AHEC program and a number of curricular topics within the College of Medicine and Graduate School, including behavioral and social sciences, bioethics, geriatrics, and palliative care, population health, and the medical humanities. So primary care education is only one of the major functions that our department has at NEOMED. With such a diverse department, it was important for us to collaboratively develop a strategic plan within our department that had strong buy-in from all of the department members. Because of our diversity, without having a strategic vision and shared plan, it would be easy for people to get focused on other challenges. Now, when I arrived at NEOMED, our department's mission statement was 36 words long. When I asked the faculty members at the first department meeting what the mission of the department was, no one could recite it or even paraphrase it. If you have a mission that is not known to even the leaders of the department, then you have a mission that is likely not being advanced. So I challenged the faculty to come up with a new mission statement that encompassed our work and was less than 15 words so that everybody could remember it. And now they do. In a highly iterative and collaborative process, the department members arrived at this mission statement over the course of 3 department meetings, and it was unanimously confirmed. Similarly, our vision and values were also arrived at using a highly iterative and collaborative process. And these were also unanimously confirmed by all department members, as well as by the dean and our key external stakeholders. During our retreat in 2014, and by the end of the retreat, the department had come up with 5 strategic goals. And again, our top goal was to increase the number of graduates who practice primary care to greater than 30%. So following the department retreat and with our new BHAG primary goal to increase the number of graduates, we employed the World Cafe method to ask the question, what activities could we employ at NEOMED to increase student interest in primary care? Using the World Cafe method, 3 groups of 6 people rotated amongst the 3 pillars, pipeline, admissions, and medical student experience. And we developed a list of 80 potential activities. Using a modified combination of the nominal group process and Delphi method over the next 2 months, we combined like items into 60 items. Then we asked individuals to rank each item based on both the impact and feasibility using a 10-point scale. And I'm going to show you an example of that in a little bit. At this point, we sought stakeholder input, including the dean, partner residency programs, and other key stakeholders to add to our 60 items, as well as to rank these in order of impact and feasibility. The result of this was the creation of a top 10 list for each of the pillars. Then we brought these back to the department meeting and asked all department members to endorse the final ranking of each of the top 10 activities in each pillar. And in that final endorsement, we told them that we were going to be asking them to each take on at least one of these as a goal for the next year. We asked the specific question, are the feasibility rankings correct? And we wanted the person with the most experience in each of the strategies to weigh in on the feasibility. Then we asked people, which of each of the items can we do with our current human resources, and which ones of these would require additional resources? And then we asked each person to choose 3 to 5 from each group to implement in the next year. So back on slide number 3, I said that you need to understand the causes of low primary care output in order to figure out how to impact and change the outcomes. When I arrived at NEOMED, we had been the best rated clerkship for 5 years running. And now in 2020, we're still the best rated clerkship for more than 10 years running. In spite of that, only 8% of students were choosing family medicine. And the number of students who graduated from NEOMED that were practicing primary cares 3 years after graduation was pretty low. Our numbers indicated that it was lower than national average. One thing we figured out with our data check was that students with the characteristics of those who choose family medicine were not being admitted to NEOMED at a high enough rate. We also found out that high debt load was concerning to the vast majority of our students, and that those with a lower debt load were usually from more affluent families. Now, as you all know, medical students are high achievers with many choices, and they are drawn to apply their achievements. One thing we noticed is that there was a perception that there were not a lot of ways for students to apply their achievements in the primary care world. So many of the highest achieving students look elsewhere for more choices. So that got us to scratching our heads to try to figure out how we can provide opportunities for students that are high achievers within the Department of Family and Community Medicine, and also within the field of family medicine. So what kind of things can we offer to students who are high achievers so that they don't have to look elsewhere for those things? And I'm going to give you a couple of specific examples. Looking at our GIS data, and this is some of the work of Dr. Porfelli, and And Dr. Porfelli, if I report any of this wrong, please feel free to correct me.
John,
yes.
you usually set me straight, so don't worry about it.
Thanks. It became apparent that most of our applicants to NEOMED come from affluent families in Northeast Ohio. And this was consistent with the national data, which indicates that more than 75% of students come from the upper 2 quintiles of family income, and less than 10% of applicants come from the lowest 2 quintiles of family income. In our quest, though, we also wanted to be careful that we are not taking students interested in family medicine away from other schools in Ohio, such as Wright State University. So we asked, how do we increase the pool of qualified applicants interested in family medicine? And as we learned from Dr. Porfelli, qualified applicants are rare, and qualified applicants from underrepresented in medicine are even more rare. So just again, to show you the slide of the 3 pillars before we go on to each of the 3 pillars, pipeline, admissions, and the medical student experience. So just to recap here, what we did was that we created a top 10 list for each of the 3 pillars. Then we asked each faculty member to choose at least one of the items from the top 10 list, which I'm going to show you in a moment. And this was tied to their annual goal setting and annual review. And we've continued to do that every year for the past 5 years. So here's an example of the top 10 list for the pre-medical pipeline pillar. You can see with the first strategy, identify and support pre-medical students who have a likelihood to enter primary care. And our ranking there, which was the highest overall, was a 6.86. We thought the impact of that average score was 7.78, and the feasibility was a little lower. So faculty members were encouraged to choose strategies at the top of the list or choose multiple strategies if choosing one that was fairly straightforward, such as number 7. T-shirts, family medicine proud, marketing to pre-meds. And now we have T-shirts that we create every year that we give out to both pre-medical and first-year medical students. In some cases, a strategy was large enough to need a group of faculty members working on it. And in some cases, it was small enough that it could be handled by one faculty member. In each case, a SMART goal was to develop to guide the implementation of that particular strategy. So when a faculty member picked one up, we asked them to develop a SMART goal so that we could then monitor their progress. So for admissions, our unpublished motto that we developed in our department has been dominate admissions. And every department member has been focused on increasing the number of students that we admit who fit the criteria for people that are likely to go into family medicine. And there's a number of ways we do that, including participating on the admissions committee, conducting admissions interviews, training our colleagues on how to identify the characteristics associated with family medicine, and conducting file reviews. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. During our research, we looked across the nation to see what programs had high rates of students going into family medicine. And then we looked at schools where we could copy or emulate what they had done. The one singular factor that we found that was consistently associated with more students entering family medicine was having a rural pathway or rural track for medical students. NEOMED had already started an urban pathway the year before I arrived, and the urban pathway was not located within our department. Rather, the management of the urban pathway was being conducted out of Cleveland State University, who was our partner for the urban pathway. So our first focus for the medical student experience was launching a rural pathway. And I'm going to show you a slide a little later that shows the success of rural pathways in terms of students entering family medicine at other institutions. We're going to review some of the other medical student experiences that we've implemented in our department in a little bit. And I want to show you a few here that were high on the list that we came up with. Exposing students to some of the family medicine subspecialties was felt to be important because students have a lot of choices in their third year of medical school to experience on the internal medicine electives, but the family medicine electives, comparatively speaking, are rather limited when you look in the NEOMED elective book. So we have worked to increase our elective offerings for students in the third year of medical school. And we've also worked to demonstrate to students all of the fellowships that are available within the field of family medicine. We also started a program called Fireside Chats, where students are invited to spend an evening at a family physician's home, where they meet as a group and share a meal with a family physician. Sometimes these have 8 or 10 students, sometimes they have up to 20 students. Then the family doc talks about their career and their life as a family physician. We also have developed a student-run free clinic at NEOMED, which is run out of our department, where students are exposed to family physicians in a very positive and affirming learning environment. This clinic has won multiple awards, including Free Clinic of the Year for Ohio twice, as well as internal and external awards. And there is ample funding to start a free clinic through organizations such as the AAFP Foundation, who gave us $25,000 when we started. So if your school doesn't have one, you might want to look into that. All of the faculty members who volunteer at the free clinic really love that, and we have a lot of private practitioners and partner residency faculty members who volunteer there. So here's an example of 4 different faculty members who are not physicians, each taking ownership of one or more of the top 10 items from each of the 3 pillars. For example, Michael Appelman became a co-lead on developing the rural pathway in our department. And Julie Altman became a lead on creating a summer research experience for rising M2 medical students. And Chris Boffman she made a significant commitment to the admissions process at NEOMED. In the old BSMD program, students were admitted to a 6-year combined bachelor's and medical school experience right out of high school. So we were having to decide which students would be the future doctors and what specialty they would choose when they were literally 17 to 19 years old. Back in 2014, Dr. Sussman and Dr. Porfelli, working with the support of other leaders at NEOMED, began working on phasing out the BSMD program and replacing it with a system that was more consistent with our mission and values. The process of phasing this out was challenging because tradition runs deep, and changing something that's been in place for 35 years does not come easy. If you consider that up until that point, almost all of our graduates at NEOMED had been through the BSMD program, and therefore our base in terms of alumni and donors were all graduates of this program, that was a very big challenge. We are now in the final year of phasing out the 6-year BSMD program. So within our department, we embarked on a year-long faculty development program where we spent 15 to 20 minutes every department meeting reviewing a short presentation on the value of primary care, or reading some of Barbara Starfield's work and having faculty break up into small groups to discuss some of the dilemmas facing our healthcare system. This was our attempt to teach our non-family physicians about the importance of primary care. We also took our PhD faculty on field trips to family physicians' offices for an afternoon where 3 or 4 faculty would gather together, and one at a time they would spend some time with one of the family physicians going in to see a patient, and then come back to the room and debrief with everybody else by me asking the question, what did you experience and how is that different from what you expected? In this way, everyone was able to experience family medicine on a more personal level and develop a comfort while talking with medical students about family medicine. By the end of the year, all of the faculty in our department were well educated on the value of family medicine, as well as what goes on in a family physician's office. So we went from not knowing a lot about family medicine in our department to having every faculty member comfortable advising students about opportunities in family medicine. We also went from everybody focusing on their specific area, whether it be geriatrics or humanities or bioethics, to a singular focus on increasing the number of students going into family medicine. And that has continued for the last 6 years with some intermittent doses of review and bringing new faculty members up to speed on the value and importance of family medicine, ensuring that we are all on the same page. Now, I want to talk a little bit about our pipeline program that we currently have. Our AHEC was, for those of you who don't know what AHEC is, AHEC was established by Congress in 1971 to recruit, train, and retain a health professions workforce committed to underserved populations. And the purpose of the AHEC program is to meet the needs of communities they serve through robust community academic partnerships with a focus on exposure, education, and training of the current and future healthcare workforce, such as development of an AHEC Scholars Program. AHEC's focus on improving the healthcare system by working with academic institutions, healthcare settings, including community health centers, behavioral practices, and community-based organizations. Through longstanding partnerships, AHEC's helped to develop and train a diverse healthcare workforce prepared to deliver culturally appropriate, high-quality, team-based care with an emphasis on primary care for rural and underserved communities. And AHECs are embedded in the communities they serve. NEOMED's AHEC has 4 centers in Northeast Ohio, 1 in Akron, 1 in Canton, 1 in Youngstown, and 1 in Cleveland. And each AHEC is governed by an independent board. What we have done is to align the pipeline work of the 4 AHEC centers with the department's mission and vision and our work to increase student choice of family medicine. And we have a number of ways that we do that. And that would probably be different at different schools. But I just wanted to touch on the pipeline programs. And if you want, we can talk more about this later. I want to move on to talking a little bit about admissions. Under the old 6-year BSMD program, as I mentioned earlier, when you're interviewing students who are 16 or 17 or 18 years old, it's really hard to predict what specialties they're leaning towards. Furthermore, students were coached by their parents and others to answer questions about specialty by talking about primary care during their admissions interviews. And what we found out was that shortly after admissions to NEOMED, many students would suddenly change their interest to a specialty or subspecialty field before they had even been exposed to those fields. Remember that the students had to complete their bachelor's degree in just 2 years to get admitted to this program. So our undergraduate partners placed heavy emphasis on their scores and grades on SATs and ACTs. During the latter part of 2016, our family medicine dean, Jeff Sussman, resigned a couple of years earlier than he had intended to. Our new dean, who was interim for a year and then became permanent dean in 2018, had a different view of the mission of the College of Medicine, and the commitment to primary care was removed from the College of Medicine mission statement. And as you can imagine, this was a devastating blow to our department. However, this was occurring at the same time that the admissions overhaul was being finalized. And because of our department's strong relationship with the admissions committee and with University Student Affairs Office, the folks that handled the admissions process, we were able to positively impact the student characteristics that were crucial for us to achieve our goals. And we were also able to make a significant impact on having a presence for admissions interviews and file reviews. And now we conduct a plurality of the admissions interviews and a majority of the file reviews. And this is a big commitment for our faculty, as you can imagine. So due to some procedural changes in the admissions process, the file reviews were actually given more importance than the admissions interviews. And that's the importance toward a final decision to offer a spot to each student. That is to say, there is a point system which gives points to each candidate based on various factors. Some of those factors are whether they fall into a tier 1 or tier 2. The number of points given for file reviews is much higher than the number of points given for admissions interviews. So at our school, the maximum number of points for file reviews is 40, and the maximum number of points for interviews is 8. So file reviews, then you might say they're 5 times more important than the interviews. Furthermore, as we discovered through our experiences with interviews, the actual difference in scores between students' interviews were often not that much. Once we figured this out, coupled with the fact that the admissions file reviews count more toward the admissions choice than the admissions interview, we refocused our energy on the file reviews. And as of last year, we are now conducting more than half of all of the admissions file reviews from our department members. So the admissions folks have come to rely on us as trusted members to help with the work of file reviews. And that's really given us a big impact. So this graph shows the progression from where we were in 2018 to where we will be by 2023. So more than 100 of our 160 students came from the BSMD program in 2018. And that number is phasing out so that by 2021 or next year, the number will be 0. In the meantime, we have increased the number of students coming through the traditional pathway, as well as students coming through the new early assurance program. And that's the one I mentioned before, where now instead of interviewing students that are high school, we now interview them after 2 years of college. And what this next slide shows is the mission-centric attributes of our top 100 traditional candidates from the most recent year. And this is a huge change from where it was just a few years ago. So now with our top 100 traditional candidates, almost 2/3 come from lower socioeconomic status. More than 1/3 are first generation, 9% rural, and 22% underrepresented minorities. So I want to move on to pillar 3. This is where we have really excelled at NEOMED. The urban pathway was started in 2013, and as I mentioned earlier, it wasn't in the Department of Family Medicine. This year, we had the opportunity to move the urban pathway into the Department of Family Medicine. And in spite of the challenges associated with that move, we jumped on the opportunity and created a new home for the urban pathway in our department. We started the rural pathway in 2015, and then in 2016, we started the Family Medicine-Centric Student-Run Free Clinic, which, as I mentioned earlier, has been the recipient of numerous awards and is a feather in the cap of NEOMED, both at the university and College of Medicine level. And since that's run out of our department, it really helps us to look good in terms of administration. The support we've received for the free clinic has been tremendous, and the recognition of the importance of our department and the value of our department to the university and medical students has been transformational. In 2019, we launched the Accelerated Family Medicine 3-year track. This is for students who know they want to go into family medicine when they start medical school and are ready to commit to a residency in their first year of medical school. We expanded the Leroy Rogers program. This is a program that is a 4-week summer experience between the first and second year, and it's sponsored by the Ohio Academy of Family Physicians Foundation. Where we had only a few students participating annually prior to 2014, now we have 8 to 10 students participating annually. And our data indicates that about half of these students wind up choosing family medicine. We've greatly expanded family medicine research opportunities for students where we used to have 1 or 2 students a year participating with our faculty in our department. Now we have 6 to 8 every year. We also started a patient coaching program for our rural students, students in the rural program, where they participate in a structured program and go out to a patient's home in person or see them virtually every month for a year during their second year of medical school. And as mentioned, this started out as part of the rural pathway, and now we're expanding it to other pathways. And finally, this year, we started a social justice pathway at NEOMED. Within all the pathways, we've created student learning communities that promote camaraderie, peer mentoring, and increase student satisfaction. Additionally, we have many more touches with our family medicine faculty through the pathways. And in all of the pathways, for all intents and purposes, we control the admissions process. Essentially, we make recommendations to the admissions committee, but they've always followed those recommendations. And once these pathways are fully matriculated, we'll have between 60 and 80 of the students, almost half of the class each year, in pathways that are thus controlled by the Department of Family and Community Medicine. So our newest BHAG is to get to a point where half of the students in the College of Medicine are in pathways run by our department. What we know from national data is that students who participate in rural programs are much more likely to go into a true primary care residency than students that are in the general medical student class. The matriculation rates that you can see here into primary care residencies range from 30% up to 100%. And during the early days of our strategic planning, back in 2014, before we started our rural pathway, we visited the program in Philadelphia run by Howard Rabinovitz at Thomas Jefferson, as well as the longstanding program at the University of Minnesota in Duluth campus. Dr. Porfelli accompanied us on these trips, and in both of these programs, there were a couple of key components, including pipeline admissions and medical student experience that led to high rates of students going into family medicine. So the key components of successful pathways include admitting students that are a good fit for the pathway, supporting student orientation, creating a learner-centered educational home, and attending to the formal and hidden curriculum. And in our curriculum, we create longitudinal relationships with primary care physicians in the pathways through our primary care ambulatory experience, as well as during our third-year clerkships. We've also developed a compendium of scholarships that are available to our students, and we've worked closely with our development office to create new scholarships specifically for pathway students. For example, students in the rural pathway can apply for a specific scholarship of $50,000 to support them in the rural pathway. So back to the 3-pillar strategy. What can you do at your institution to increase the number of applicants with characteristics of those that choose family medicine? What can you do to improve the admissions process to admit more students that have those characteristics? And finally, how can you nurture the students that are likely to choose family medicine, including those that are on the fence? Let's look at some of our answers to these questions. For students that are considering or exploring, we can expose them to the core principles of family medicine through our educational curricula, and also through things like a student-run free clinic, where we can be welcoming to students in a fun, rewarding environment. We can help our family medicine interest group welcome new students into the family medicine community, for example. One way we've done that at NEOMED is to hold a presentation early in the M1 year called Family Medicine is Like Chipotle, where we have a vibrant speaker talk about the many things you can do in family medicine. We also feed the students Chipotle. This is run by the Family Medicine Interest Group. In this presentation, we sign the students up to the American Academy of Family Physicians. And in stage 2, Contemplating, for those students who are contemplating family medicine, we try to engage them in ways that deepen their engagement in family medicine. And in stage 3, we work to prepare students for residency and future practice. So during the 3rd year of medical school and early in the 4th year of medical school, we engage students in a couple of workshops. One of these is called Preparing Your ERAS Application for Family Medicine Residency. Another one is an interview skills workshop. One is called Preparing Your Match List. And then one of those is a post-match debrief. In the post-match debrief, we have 4th year students talk to 3rd year medical students about the process of applying to interviewing and matching in family medicine residency. Here are some examples, and you'll see some overlap in the 3 stages, but here are some examples of the kinds of activities we offer during the stage 1 exploring. And you'll get a copy of these slides. Here are some activities that we offer during stage 2, the contemplation stage. The intergenerational Halloween party is really a blast, by the way. And then here are some activities that we offer during stage 3, the committed page. So we're almost done. So another important component is engaging leadership at your medical school. There are a number of ways we have demonstrated the value of our department to leaders at the medical school. One way is by stepping up when you're asked to do something that might require you to give some of your human resources away. Another way that we've done this at our institution is the development of the Center for Integrated Primary and Mental Health Care. And this is work that I've been doing with the chairs of the departments of internal medicine, pediatric, and psychiatry at NEOMED. We've been working on this for about 4 years. Another way that we've demonstrated our value is through some grants that we've achieved, a HRSA Primary Care Training and Enhancement Award, where we've been able to bring resources to the medical school to improve the curriculum by adding things such as social determinants of health into the curriculum, by adding other things such as work-life balance into the curriculum, and a number of other things. And we also started a fellowship for faculty, and we've had about 60 of our partner faculty as well as medical school faculty go through this fellowship. We are also in the second year of another HRSA grant, which is an integrated behavioral health and primary care grant. And so we've been able to engage leadership at NEOMED in a number of ways that have really brought value to the leadership. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about our results. The horizon for outcomes from a change at a medical school is really 8 to 10 years. It takes a couple of years to implement a program and get it up and running. And then you have a few more years until it's in full play. And then a few more years for the students to graduate and finish residency. So the first thing you want to do is look for formative outcomes to show that you're on the right track. And so here are 12 of our formative outcomes. We went from being a siloed department to one where we have a cohesive group of diverse faculty centered around a goal to increase students going into family medicine. There's been a broad recognition of the value of the department with the 4 pathways we've created over 6 years, where we have significant input into the admissions process. We also have some other highly regarded projects. We've had strong buy-in from the dean, and in spite of the mission statement being changed, we continue to be the highest rated clerkship within the medical school. Another measure of success might be the number of students in the pathways, and I'm going to show you some data about that. In this year, we admitted about 45 students to the 4 pathways. And currently, we have over 90 students over all 4 years in the 4 pathways. Once we are full, we'll be admitting about 65 to 80 students in the pathways each year. We've been working with the departments, as I mentioned, of the heads of pediatrics, internal medicine, and psychiatry. And these are the departments with the largest campus footprint. And the outcome of this has been the development of the Center for Integrated Primary and Mental Health Care. And our work with these groups continues to evolve. But one thing I can say for sure is that the chairs of these 3 departments are strong proponents of family medicine and primary care. And the chair of internal medicine, for example, has said and would say publicly that very few internal medicine residents actually do primary care. He says the number is probably 5% or less. And so to have your internal medicine chair say these things publicly and work collaboratively with you is very, very helpful. Our family medicine interest group has been the most active interest group at NEOMED, and they've received awards at NEOMED for being the best interest group of the year. And they've also received national awards for the Program of Excellence from the AAFP. We've also been an active participant in the Primary Care Leadership Collaborative, which is offered by the AAFP annually at the annual meeting of the family medicine residents and students. And our school has been participating in this collaborative for a couple of years now, and we usually have between 6 to 10 students that are active participants meeting monthly for a year while they receive support from the AAFP. And again, this gives us a lot of touches with these students and members of our department. So now we can look at where we are from 2015 to 2020 and where we are planning to be in 5 years. This represents our graduating class size, which is now hovering around 140 students. The 4 lines at the bottom represent the number of students that are coming through the pathways. The black line there is the total number of students that are coming through the pathways. And so you can see where we're at in 2020, admitting about 23 to 25 students, and where we're heading, which is admitting between 50 and 60 students by 2025. And again, I mentioned earlier, our BHAG was to get to half of the class. Now this next slide shows our family medicine match by pathway. And you can see it's gotten a little bit higher. Remember I said before 2015, we were in the 7 to 9% range. And so over the last couple of years, we've been in the 10 to maybe 13% range. I just want to point out a couple of key points here. First, you can see that we expect about 10 students from the traditional pathways to be matched in family medicine. And you can see that as the pathways grow, the number of students going into family medicine also grows. And I'm going to show you the same slide, but instead of numbers of students, it's a percentage of students. And so in this final graph, you can see the same numbers represented as a percentage of the graduating students. So over the last 5 years, we've had between 8 and 13% of our graduating class match into family medicine. And we expect this number over the next 5 years to go up and be well over 20%. Of course, time will only tell if our expectations are on spot or overly optimistic. And at the bottom, the 4 colors at the bottom are students in our pathways. So, in conclusion, to be effective in primary care transformation, you need to develop a strategic plan that takes into account the reasons for low primary care output at your institution, and a reasonable job of looking at where you can make a difference in the 3 pillars of pipeline, admissions, and medical student experience. Pathway development is a key to increasing student choice of family medicine for the 3rd pillar. Monitoring your progress to goals and being willing to make adjustments as external factors develop is also a key to achieving your most important goals.